Good evening, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. Time for another outside fire because it's springtime here in Australia and I'm doing bushfire hazard reduction. Every one of these sticks I burn in here is a stick that's not on the forest floor, and therefore if some idiot drops a cigarette on the ground or otherwise ignites a fire that's going to come up the hill towards me, then that stick is not available on my perimeter to burn my house. So this is bushfire hazard reduction, the hillbilly way. And I am a hillbilly. I might have got a little bit of tertiary education, but I'm still a hillbilly. Matter of fact, I've been living here since 1882. That's when my father's grandfather brought the family DNA to the district. And because my father was 52 when I was born, I suppose I kind of grew up with a bit of an old head on young shoulders, as they say. That doesn't mean that I got everything entirely right and proper when I was young and silly. And I guess you could say, for me sins, due to my misspent youth, I've acquired what they call shit magnet effect. Now, shit magnet effect can be a congenital condition. In order for shit magnet effect to be a congenital condition, what happens is you have to have a parent of the opposite sex to yourself who's a completely dysfunctional individual. So, if you're a young girl and you watch your drunken father beat the tripe out of your mother, particularly in your first 3 years, but you know, like generally during your prepubescent time, then you will have role modelled not only on the idea that that's acceptable for a woman to put up with, but also that that's what a real father figure, a real man in the house does. So when you go out, play in the field, looking for somebody to be attracted to, the particular individuals that you get attracted to are the dysfunctional wife beaters. Maybe the drunken wife beaters. Maybe the sadistic wife beaters. But if that's what you role model on, if you role model on somebody who's really, really, really dysfunctional, it's difficult not to be attracted by him. In a similar bent, there's an awful lot of little boys grow up watching their mother operate their father by almost invisible puppet strings. And a lot of these young boys, they find themselves attracted to not so subtly manipulative individuals. That's a kind of a shit magnet effect. It's the congenital shit magnet effect. It's the little girls who want to partner up with wife beaters, and they might have 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a row. It's the little boys who want to partner up with a manipulative bitch, and they might have 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a row. Then there's the other kind of shit magnet effect. And by the way, this is a malt liquor video. Here we have, I think this is the 4th one that I've been drinking today. I had 2 before I started collecting firewood. And I've had 1.5 while sitting here watching the fire. And now I'm sort of a mind to expound, to pontificate, to shoot me mouth off as the fool on the hill about shit magnet effect. Now the other kind of shit magnet effect It's the acquired ship magnet effect. Now, that's what happens when somebody who didn't start off so far down the social scale that they had a genuinely fair income dysfunctional parental relationship to role model on, but they've had a few things go wrong with them such that they are wanting, they are needy, they are attention seeking, and they really want to cuddle. And when they hit puberty and the hormones begin to flow, they discover that sexuality is an avenue to a cuddle like you wouldn't believe when you're a child. I mean, the level of acceptance that a person gets when somebody else invites them to bed is so much diametrically opposed to the level of rejection that some people feel at various stages in their childhood and adolescence before that it's entirely possible to dive headlong into the sensuousness of sexuality in order to get the cuddles and the attention that are perceived to have been lacking or may have indeed been lacking. And whereas the first sexual relationship that most people have takes quite a long while to organise, after one becomes, well, in the vernacular, cunt-struck for the boys or cock-eyed for the girls, then subsequent partners are more or less selected in terms of how much difficulty there is going to be in organising a physical liaison. So, if a young boy, for example, sees an attractive young girl who's got everything going for her, but he knows that because of her social situation and her upbringing, it's going to take weeks or months, if not years, to coax her to take her underpants off for him, and he may actually have to put a ring on her finger first, then the young bloke who's chasing serial sensual encounters because he really wants a cuddle, he's likely to leave her alone and go looking further afield until he finds some sweet young thing who gives him the unspoken impression, or maybe the spoken impression, that he's not going to have to spend so long or so much or work as hard in order to get her to agree to take her underpants off. And thereafter he embarks upon a progression of women who are successively easier and easier and easier and easier to talk into taking their underpants off. And I'm not a woman, so I can't say what the similar procedure is for a woman to acquire shit magnet effect. But I'm sure there exists several tracks where somebody who's got a chance of making good decisions or making bad decisions can choose the bad decisions and find themselves in the position where they have acquired ship magnet effect. In my own case, and that's the only one I really know to speak on with certainty, the last girlfriend I had, the last seduction I performed before I decided to give away promiscuous sex and save myself for marriage at a time when I'd only had 44 partners, but the last seduction that I did, I think I talked to the lady concerned for about an hour. It might have been an hour and a half, and it was coming on to 5 o'clock and the shop that we were in was closing, and I knew the shopkeeper wanted to shut the shop up, but I was pretty certain I was onto a good thing. And I said to this sweet young lady, and she was sweet and she was young, you know, like she was younger than me, and I said to her, look, I live 26, well, 5 miles the other side of a town, 26 miles away from here. And it's coming on for the weekend and it's nearly Christmas. If you're in the mood for a Christmas fuck and a bottle of tequila, would you like to come home with me tonight? And after less than 2 hours of talking to her, she said yes. Right? So I was a long way down the scale. Right? Okay. That particular relationship turned out to be fearsomely dramatic, and I decided, golly gosh, it's not possible to have intense, passionate, physical, sexual relationships with women as a man without any commitment, without hurting somebody. Either the sweet young thing gets hurt or the sweet young bloke gets hurt. So at that point, I decided to save myself for marriage. And by the twists of the cosmic scoreboard, and because of shit magnet effect, what I didn't realise was that I had descended so far down the scale that I was only attractive to and attracted by dysfunctional, promiscuous dingbats. Now, it's possible that this had been the case from the start, that, you know, severely twisted events that happened in 1964 when I was 3 years old meant that I had a really, really, really low self-esteem, and that I always felt that she was too good for me unless she was a dysfunctional, promiscuous dingbat. But when I settled down to get married, I married my just desserts. I married pretty much the perfect nemesis for me. Somebody who, perhaps, if she and I had made all of the correct decisions with no selfishness involved at any point, we could have had a happy marriage and a good relationship. But she, for her reasons, and me for my reasons, was selfishly defensive, and we had a really, really miserable marriage. There were good points, but I got to be the stepfather from hell. During the breakup phase, we fought in court for 9 years. And about a month and a half ago, I was at my daughter's house. My wife went to visit my daughter, and she apparently didn't notice my car parked out the front. So she walked into my daughter's back room, and for the first time in 10 years, I saw my wife. Of course, I refer to her as my wife because we don't get along well enough together to get divorced. To get divorced, you have to cooperate to sign paperwork. We are not that communicative. So shit magnet effect is a defect, sometimes congenital and sometimes acquired, which means that specific individuals are better off not attempting to have any physical, romantic, passionate relationships in their lives, because the only such relationships available to them are going to turn their lives into shit. And I got to say, having been celibate for over 13 years, and it's more like 18 years since I left my wife, every time I've fallen off my perch of celibacy, it's been with a fairly dysfunctional, promiscuous dingbat, and my life has in fact turned to shit as a result. So, unless you've already acquired shit magnet effect, be careful. If you are a hardened, seasoned campaigner with lots of notches on your belt, many previous partners that you can think back on, then look long and hard at yourself and consider the idea that you can do a whole lot less damage to the world, socially speaking, if you embrace celibacy. It's the only cure for shit magnet effect. There's a mechanism whereby if you've shared an orgasm with a dingbat, that will bend and twist and skew all of your needles and dials on your attractiveness gauges into the dingbat position. So after you break up with a dingbat, because although the orgasm was pretty good, you can't stand the way they live their lives or the effect they have on yours, after you break up, next time you go off hunting for pelt, as some blokes like to say, when you go wandering off to the pub and you see somebody who looks like, gee, I'd like to have a piece of that, all of your needles and dials and gauges for attractiveness are still set on dingbat, and you will find yourself attracted to somebody who is just a little bit worse than the last one you had. And if you have no children and you've been sharing orgasms with a dingbat, it's going to take you 7 years of celibacy for the needles on your dial to come back to zero, so that you've got the faintest, foggiest idea of what's a good idea to be smooching up to. If you've already got kids, then guess what? Your kids do not want a step-parent fantasy inflicted on them. So you have no business smooching up to anybody. There we go, shit magnet effect. It's one of the secret rules of the universe. It's why so many religions recommend virginity, monogamy, or celibacy. Because children are hardwired, programmed to expect mummy and daddy to live under the same roof and to be happy together. And by the virtues of shit magnet effect, people who try to transgress those lines tend to breed badly and have handicaps afflicted on their children, because the sins of the parents are visited onto the children, even unto the 7th generation. If your kids grow up not knowing how to live happily, what are they going to teach your grandchildren? And how the hell are their grandchildren going to know how to live happy? Shit magnet effect. It's one of the things that stops dickheads from breeding prolifically. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. That's over 15 minutes. But I think it'll fit on the one battery. And it should also upload. Yahoo yippee. Ciao.